Welcome to everyone who's not here for the usual content, to the book fans who did not give up on the show and read Fire and Blood again 3 times while in tears on how the show killed their book, or to those filthy fucking casuals. Welcome to my review of House of the Dragon, Episode 2. Let's begin. Okay, so we get the same opening theme, and I kind of expected this because it's an iconic theme. If you use another one, it'll just get criticized as being inferior to the old one, so why not just use the old theme? Like, make almost no changes to it, and then slap on a new animation. And this new animation, I think, is Old Valyria, because we get, like, our resident nerd, Viserys, explaining the history of Old Valyria, and he does it as the camera is, like, facing his, like, model toy set. So that's what I think this is. It does look like it's built on a volcano, and it does match the description. And then we just get blood running all over the streets and like everything around everywhere inside of like this Old Valyria animation. Ending up in, I think, what is the Dragon Pit. Correct me if I'm wrong. But this one is not as visually appealing as the old one. The old one was colorful and showed us all of Westeros, but like, I think since we've seen that intro, like, for 8 years, for like 8 seasons, we like memorized the map of Westeros already. So why not give us a new one with Old Valyria, like just the city itself, before the fall? So yeah, for all of you lore nerds out there, this is a treat for all of you. So now we get to the actual episode. So we start with a scene to set up the crab feeder. It's here to hype him up as like this sick sadistic heel that feeds people to crabs. So we don't get much detail. Like, even in the book, even in World of Ice and Fire, we don't get much detail about the crab feeder or like the whole thing that goes on in Essos. But it's actually kind of big, and I hope they include it in the show. I hope we get to like see scenes where like 2 major characters just like fight the crab feeder, fight a war with him. And yeah, I hope they flesh it out in the show. Because how they did it in Fire and Blood and in World of Ice and Fire is like just very brief. It's like a side thought. It's like side note. Like, it just happens and then the character returns. Like the maester who wrote the book, or like the narrator of the story, Simon Vance in the audiobook, he just says that it's not his job to tell us what happened in Essos, and then he just skips right back to the main Targaryen storyline. But this scene was very effective, very graphic as well. And it also has that like horror sound effect where like the sound just like increases rapidly. And it kind of like sets the tone, or like sets our expectations on the crab feeder. Like, we're basically gonna get a monster, or like a Blackbeard from what I've seen. And then this connects right to the next scene, where we have Corlys Velaryon, Lord of Driftmark, Lord of High Tide, Master of Ships, just pissed off because this wouldn't have happened if they all just listened to him. But instead, they just fucked around and then wasted their time with the tournament where a lot of men died, as well as the death of the heir. And not only that, but this is elevated by, like, just Viserys' ascension to the throne. Like, it was supposed to be Rhaenys, like she had a stronger claim, but because Viserys is a dude, he got it over her, over Corlys' wife. But the small council does try to like make their argument on why it's a bad idea. I mean, it is a long way away. Logistics is going to be hard, feeding like thousands of men, thousands of ships that you're going to send all the way to Essos. Those guys over there also like in home turf. They know the land as well as the sea more. Like, these guys from Westeros are like green to combat, as well as like they don't really visit the free cities a lot. So if the battle was in Westeros, just like the one in Jaehaerys' time when his son Aemon died, they would have a better chance. But this is like a great ways away. So they offer Corlys like compensation for the men and their families. They're basically gonna do nothing and just let it happen. And then we find out that Prince Daemon has taken Dragonstone, disobeying direct orders from the king, and then the king is just letting this happen. So not only is Crab Feeder stepping all over the king, but also Daemon Targaryen. And I tried thinking about like historical deaths of like Targaryens, and Prince Aemon did die via crossbow, and it was just like a stray shot. It was meant for someone else, but it hit him instead in the neck. But that's Rhaenys' father, so it's not that. But the argument of the small council like falls apart when Rhaenys mentions dragons. Like why not? Why not just send everyone? Or send Daemon Targaryen. Wink wink. Like send your undesirable fucking monster of a brother to take care of this other monster. Two birds, one stone. But then the small council like redirect the conversation into the selection of the replacement for Sir Ryan Redwine, who was that Kingsguard that we saw in the last episode, but now he's dead. We had like a small time skip, and yeah, he's dead. We didn't even see him in action. So they managed to get rid of Rhaenyra by giving her the job of picking the new Kingsguard. And this dude is gonna be like her personal guard. So yeah, well acted scene. I like the arguments from both sides. And I love how they just shut down the two smartest people in the room. The king plays his like rank card over Corlys, and then he plays like the go do something else card for Rhaenyra. You could smell the weakness on this fucker. The crab feeder has attacked 4 ships. That's like an act of war. And then he's sending envoys to his neighbors. And like King Viserys' reign is like the most populous in terms of Targaryens and dragons. So what a weakling this guy is. So after this, we get the scene where Rhaenyra is picking the next Kingsguard. And here we play the rule of threes. We get to like basically non-entities and the winner as the third one. And I hate it when this happens. It happens all the time in games as well as in movies, and it sucks. Just have like all of them present themselves. The show ends at like the 51st minute. You have like 9 minutes, and this is on a streaming service. So why not? Yeah, but we first get Sir Desmond, whose greatest achievement is that he captured a poacher. And then we get like Sir Ryman Mallister, whose greatest achievement is he won a melee at a place called Cider Hall. The place is a hall. Cider Hall is like the most unintimidating name for like a castle ever. This reminds me of a scene in the books where King Jaehaerys, I think, was also picking a Kingsguard, and then he just like didn't want the ones whose greatest achievements was like winning jousts, because like assassins will not attack on horseback. They're gonna attack on foot, and they need like great one-on-one fighters. So Princess Rhaenyra, being like the least biased, I mean, not like completely unbiased to like the one we get next, but like the smartest person in the room, wants a knight with like combat experience. So now enters Sir Criston Cole. So we already know that the princess has the hots for Criston Cole. And he's also the one with the most fighting experience, apparently. Man has been a foot soldier and has fought against the Dornish, who are like known to be like fierce effing fighters. The Dornish took out Princess Rhaenys, her dragon Meraxes, and are still unconquered and won't be part of the Seven Kingdoms for like 100 years or so. And they do manage to kill like a future king who is like not a bad king. But the Dornish are just like that awesome in fighting. They're like discount Aiel, but the Aiel are on another level, so if you're like discounting them, that's some above average fighters. So Princess Rhaenys, like this generation's Princess Rhaenys, is just like looking over, like she is like testing the quality of her niece. She's right there watching Princess Rhaenyra, like the heir, deal with the Hand of the King, Sir Otto Hightower, who I think Rhaenys knows is like a scumbag and is like a master manipulator and such. I think she's there to like gauge Rhaenyra's quality to be like future ruler. That's why she like joins her during the dance. Spoilers. And Rhaenyra passes with flying colors. if we don't take into account what happens in the future. But yeah, great scene. Hope we had more knights. I love just the placement of these like side characters in the background. It seems like they each have their own agendas. It seems like they have a purpose for being there, and that like, you know, that thing from Telltale Games where like this person so and so remembers this event or like this choice that you made. This is kind of like what I feel about this scene, and what I feel like Sir Otto Hightower as well as Princess Rhaenys in the background is like thinking about. And then after this, we get the scene of Viserys the king, the geek that he is, flexing his action figures to Alicent Hightower. This is like the model that he has in his room of old Valyria that they use for the opening sequence. And it's very plain to see for like anyone else what this girl and like her father is trying to do to the king. But of course, Viserys, grief-stricken and not the strongest personality, also kind of weak and dumb, doesn't notice it at all, and he's playing right into the hands of the Hightowers. And I like that they like address the elephant in the room like right away. That Alicent is Rhaenyra's like best friend. And it's kind of creepy, this thing that's going on between Viserys and Alicent. And I like that Alicent isn't acting like Marjorie Tyrell. That it's not like blatantly obvious that this lady's trying to like seduce this dude. It's all done very subtly. And Viserys is just like falling into the trap. He's like ensnaring himself into the trap. Like it looks like Alicent is like exerting like minimal effort. It's like all it takes is her mere presence around Viserys. But I kind of prefer it this way because it's like it's too subtle for Game of Thrones. Like if this was like back in the main series, there would be like a sex scene between these two like last episode. It would happen like right away. Like the showrunners would take like every chance they would get in order to have like fucking sex scenes all over the place. So I like how they do this like romancing or like courting between these two characters. And yeah, in the book, there's this like fool, like this like court jester who's a dwarf that I think isn't gonna be in the show anymore, who like is referenced by the maester who like tells the story in the book. So like he references like another maester, another septon, I forgot. And then he references this dude called Mushroom, and he's like nowhere in the show. I don't know if it's like a social justice thing or they actually don't want the show to go in that direction. But it would have been better to like have him in the show and then have events actually play out as he like describes it in his history. So yeah, but all in all, this scene was pretty alright. After this, we have Rhaenyra and Alicent in the Sept, like lighting candles, mourning their dead parents, and Alicent Hightower once again like really subtly just like pulling the strings on like the people she's around. The woman plays her best friend like a fiddle, and this would have had like greater effect if like the payoff to this storyline happened like in the next episode. Like if we got more scenes of like Princess Rhaenyra and Alicent Hightower like hanging out, making like their friendship mean more, or maybe like give us some flashbacks to when they were children, it could have made the betrayal, like the betrayal payoff we get later in the episode, like mean a lot more than this. Like it would have been awesome if Alicent was actually like conflicted or something. Because later on in the war, she isn't like completely a Cersei. Like when an important death happens, she actually like isn't okay with that death happening. And you can say that they weren't really friends, that this is like a learning moment for Princess Rhaenyra. But that's not what was beginning to be showed in the first episode. We could have also had her like be oblivious to all of this. Because these girls are like 14 to 15 in the show. So it would have been nice to actually like see them act their age and like be oblivious to what Otto Hightower is like asking her to do. And yeah, that would have been a lot better. And it would have made more sense like book wise. Because in the books, like Rhaenyra was okay with like this relationship between Alicent and Viserys. Like by the end of this episode, Rhaenyra like gets pissed and like they are immediately like set against each other unless they change it up in the next episode. If they like add some scenes where like they reconcile and stuff, that would really be nice. Just to like get it back to like how the book did it. But yeah, if you like some like emotional manipulation, this scene could have been longer, but it was alright. Okay, so after this, we get the scene where Corlys Velaryon and Princess Rhaenys trying to like offer up their daughter, Laena, who's like, I think 12 years old in the show. They're trying to offer her up in a less underhanded and a more official sort of like marriage proposal. It's like more of a betrothal other than like secretly trying to seduce the king. And I love how Lord Velaryon and Princess Rhaenys like go about this in the conversation. They start by talking about the disagreement in court. We get some flattery here and there, and Viserys takes a little offense to this jab by Lord Corlys, and then he gets to the point of projecting strength by the crown. And like we find out later in the episode that this whole proposal to beat the crab feeder is like a lot more selfish than we originally thought. Like what Lord Corlys needs is like security for his family. Because it's looking like this thing with the crab feeder, this guy's gonna go unchecked if he didn't do what he did like later on in the episode. So his second course of action is to make this very like far age gap betrothal with his like 12-year-old daughter to this like late 30s dude or like 40s dude. And who knows, if he manages to like get this betrothal like in place, he might have enough influence from the king in order to like send a fleet, like finally get what he wants. Because if the crab feeder goes unchecked, he's gonna be ruined. Like he states this at the end of the episode. So yeah, they make their proposal. This is like a really strong like candidate here for like betrothal. If this was Crusader Kings, this would be the highest prestige, like strongest ally sort of betrothal. Like compared to Lady Alicent, whose father is like Sir Otto Hightower. He's a sir. He doesn't even have like land of his own, I think. Or if he does, it's like super small. It's like he's the brother, I think, of the Lord of Hightower himself. So Old Town isn't even his. Plus, if we're talking about like keeping the blood pure or like Valyrian blood, the Velaryons are like right up there. They're like the two last remaining Valyrian families. So you're not even risking like the results of inbreeding as much as like marrying another Targaryen. So like let's measure up the pros and the cons here. So like for the Velaryons, marrying Laena, the pros are Lord Velaryon is a badass. He's like the highest stat dude in the entire realm. Like he's the most complete character in Crusader Kings in the entire realm. And then he also has the most capable navy. So the man is like responsible for like defending the trade of your country. Like compared to the Ironborn, who just like raid and stuff. They're like loose cannons. While the Velaryons are actually like a positive for Westeros. We have the Valyrian genetics. The gene pool will not be diluted, resulting in like the loss of the ability to ride dragons. And I think the Velaryons are like the richest house in the entire Seven Kingdoms, like at this point in time. Like they're even richer than the Lannisters. So like this is the perfect betrothal for the king. Like if it were me, I would take it in a heartbeat. Like in Crusader Kings, this is the one I'll go with. And then like the con is, yeah, there are like two cons. One is that it's creepy. And then 1.5 is that Viserys won't be getting any ass or any pussy for like 4 more years until this girl comes of age. And then as for Alicent, I guess she's older and like the wait will be shorter. But like all of the possible pros are outweighed by like the pros for the Velaryons. And like just marrying the daughter of like the Hand of the King, like someone who's that high in the hierarchy, like compared to Master of Ships, Hand of the King is like number 2 in the entire kingdom. Like when Tywin Lannister becomes Hand of the King, he basically runs the country. So there's a bit of a conflict of interest there. But yeah, like even from here, the audience is already like pretty sure what's about to happen. But yeah, I love the scene here. It's the best scene so far. And acting wise for this episode, Paddy Considine is still number 1. It carries over from last episode. He's still like the defending House of Dragon acting champion. And I'm looking forward to more scenes with the pair of Corlys and Rhaenys. Like maybe with like just the both of them talking. Just so I could gauge or like properly gauge the chemistry between the two. So yeah, after this, we get this scene between King Viserys and Princess Rhaenyra. It shows us the state of their relationship. It hasn't been good, but in this scene, they try. Like Princess Rhaenys mentions the picking of Sir Criston Cole. The king doesn't really like expound on this topic. It's like the equivalent of saying, "Bruh, that's crazy." That's something you're not really listening to. Like I doubt that the king really cared about Criston Cole. Like I'm sure he would have accepted like just anybody. And so after this like short reply, it's an awkward end to the conversation. Rhaenyra then apologizes for her pretty reasonable suggestion in the small council. Like her suggestion of like bringing dragons is what Aegon the First would have done. It's like what every Targaryen, like every great Targaryen in the past would have done. Like for sure, we get King Jaehaerys, like the greatest king in Seven Kingdoms history, do something like this. He would have like rode Vermintho right up to the crab feeder and burnt his ass. Like maybe even challenged him like 1v1. But then we get King Viserys treating her like a child. Like what she complained to Alicent about earlier. And so yeah, conversation ends. Look on Princess Rhaenyra's face says everything. She has a chip on her shoulder and she's gonna prove herself later on. So this is just a short scene, but I think it really helps build up the climax of the episode, which is when Rhaenyra finally takes action, like when she finally grabs the brass ring. Like we clearly see like Viserys not taking her seriously and just like how it eats at her the more this happens, prompting her to do what she does later on. And so the next scene is Viserys consulting with his small council, but not everyone. We also get like a scene later on. But he does ask the Grand Maester as well as Otto Hightower for their opinion on Corlys Velaryon's offer. And we know like Otto Hightower like just like subtly tries to shift the king's interest like away from this like almost perfect marriage. Like this is like, as I said earlier, like the right choice, the obvious choice. He tries to take advantage of the king's indecision by using the duty card, because at this point King Viserys is in love with Alicent, and him marrying Laena is more of the duty pick. So I love the words he uses, and to be compelled to replace her for duty's sake. Like, first of all, he's trying to like establish a foothold by like relating to King Viserys because Otto's wife just like recently died in episode 1, like off screen, like maybe like a couple of months before it. Prince Daemon used this in order to like spurn Otto Hightower. But here, Otto uses Viserys' love for Emma in order to like get him to shun duty. Like he devalues it. Like the vibe I'm getting from his words is like, if you love Emma so much, then like duty is not reason enough to like remarry. In comes Alicent, who again Viserys probably loves at this point, and he makes it seem like that's the right choice. And clearly it isn't. He's using Viserys' like indecisiveness and the fact that he's emotionally compromised to advance his family's power. So yeah, great short scene right here. And I just love the maggots. Like it was an actual medieval form of like wound debridement. And this is what is nice about Game of Thrones. It's not afraid to show us like what people used to do in its most like authentic form. Like a lot of the stuff they do like actually happened in like real life. And that it's like a fantasy show, but it still has to follow the rules of like this world, with just a couple of magical creatures added into it. So after this, we get this weird courting scene between this like fucking old dude, middle-aged man, King Viserys, and like this 12-year-old girl, Laena Velaryon. And like Lord Corlys, her dad, is just like watching over them. Things were fucked up back in the day. But yeah, we do get some nice like world building, some lore information about Vhagar. Like she was Queen Visenya's dragon. So that's Aegon the Conqueror's older sister and Maegor the Cruel's wife. They also mention about like Balerion the Dread being dead. So that's like the biggest dragon in universe, like ever, until Drogon. Like they mention it here. They didn't mention it in the previous episode on how Viserys the First is the last rider of Balerion the Black Dread. Like when my friend told me this, I was like shocked because like this guy ride Balerion doesn't compute. But then we officially get it in the show. And yeah, Vhagar's whereabouts are unknown, but he will come back in time for the dance itself. And then we have Laena just recite lines fed to her by her parents. And Viserys, the good-hearted king that he is, although weak, like sees right through this. I feel that in this scene, Viserys also sees what we're seeing, that this little girl is being bound by her duty to like do something she doesn't want, to do something really fucking creepy. And this, I think, plays majorly into his decision more than any other consultation he's made this episode. And so for the second part of this scene, it shifts to Princess Rhaenyra and Princess Rhaenys. And this is just Princess Rhaenys schooling the younger princess about how the world works. Princess Rhaenyra tries to start some shit. She tries to like just sound cool, win the argument as it is right there, but it doesn't work. Rhaenys uses her like life experience in order to like explain how the world works and how it's gonna go down. And leading up to the war, it does come true, so Princess Rhaenys is correct in the end. But this just adds to the motivation of Princess Rhaenyra. This just like further pushes her forward in her quest to become queen. So the Dance with the Dragons is mostly a war about the sexism in the realm. Okay, so this scene may be polarizing. People might say it's too political for TV, but it's true though. It's a true in this setting. Not so much now. So I don't get how people could like politicize this. But for the show it works. For what they set up in episode 1, this like plays into that. And I love this scene. And then we get another scene between King Viserys and Lady Alicent. And I'm getting tired of these courtship scenes. Again, similar to the last one, it's just like Alicent very subtly seducing him. Like, almost like she's not even trying. Like, her mere presence there, like, being cute and all, is enough to, like, get Viserys to fall in love with her. And here, in true geek fashion, he favors her even more when she gives him, like, this like action figure, this figurine that she dropped earlier of a dragon. So to anyone who wants to like court me, just like give me a bunch of toys or something. Like a graphics card would be nice, some wrestling figures, some rookie cards, or like another pair of like Invincible Run 2s. I'll be like heads over heel for anyone who like bribes me with that. But yeah, this is cut short when Otto Hightower enters the room bearing bad news. Like, it's an emergency. Prince Daemon stole a dragon egg and plans to give it to his soon-to-be legitimate son from his declared second wife, Mysaria, the one with the terrible accent that we'll hear later. And still, even if his brother committed a treasonous act, Prince Viserys is still defending his ass. The guy stole a weapon of mass destruction. He captured the Castle of the Air. That's Rhaenyra's castle. And that weapon of mass destruction he stole had sentimental value because that was Balon's egg, the heir for the day's egg. So yeah, we have this poor dragon tamer just explaining in Valyrian, and only Princess Rhaenys is the one who's talking Valyrian back to him. And yeah, I think this is the first time I've seen the small council like unanimously agree on something. Even Princess Rhaenyra the cupbearer. And so after this, we get the scene where all the budget went, because we got two dragons in this scene. It's the confrontation with Prince Daemon over the dragon egg that he stole. So Lord Hightower brings in the Kingsguard, he brings in a bunch of soldiers, and that's basically it. I think he should have thought that Caraxes would be with Prince Daemon. And by the way, this is the first Prince Daemon scene in the whole episode. But yeah, he miscalculates how far the prince would go to defend his independence. But yeah, we do get a nice interaction with him and Criston Cole. And here is the building of the seeds to a legit rivalry. So yeah, they draw swords. It gets to the point where they draw swords. The leaders of both parties piss each other off so much that they draw swords, but then Caraxes comes out and scares Otto Hightower's party senseless. And when Prince Daemon was about to win this whole confrontation, Princess Rhaenyra evens up the odds by bringing Syrax and like just sitting her down, like on the path they're walking, just to even up the odds and like watch their backs in case Caraxes does start attacking. But he doesn't, and the dragons end up as like just window dressing. It's fine. And we also get some nice lines about like the city watch. And by the way, how the fuck are they still a city watch if they're not watching the city? Like, apparently all 2,000 of them came with Prince Daemon. And I don't think this was mentioned in the book on like what happened to the city watch. I just assumed they went back to King's Landing. But apparently not. We'll see them in Prince Daemon's adventures in the east. So yeah, we have the confrontation between Princess Rhaenyra and Prince Daemon. And Rhaenyra calls his bluff that Mysaria is having a child. Apparently she doesn't want to. It's like just something that Daemon made up in order to piss off his brother. So Princess Rhaenyra already like rips apart the reason that Daemon stated in the note. And then she goes for the killing blow when she goes for like this, if you hate me so much, if you want what I have, just like kill me right here and like take it. And then Daemon, I don't know if this is admiration for her spunk or like he's like having some like legit feelings for Rhaenyra, but it works. And then he tosses the egg to Rhaenyra and she gives it to the Dragon Keepers. I was waiting for a celebration by the men, by like the soldiers. Like, it would have been better if there was. Like, if they just like cheered for her. This would have been a better scene. It would have given us like a moment of levity. We could have also had like Kristen Cole congratulate Rhaenyra, adding to like her admiration for him. And yeah, there was like 9 minutes to 1 hour. There wasn't a lack of time for this. So yeah, we then get the scene where Mysaria and Prince Daemon are talking. And apparently Mysaria doesn't want to get married, she doesn't want kids, confirming that all of like Prince Daemon tried to do was like invalid. It was just a goof, basically. And she's just with him to like feel protected from fear. And this was like okay and all. Content here was okay. Like we even got the privilege line where Daemon is a Targaryen, so he has a lot of chances, while Mysaria doesn't. But the accent on this woman is just terrible. She like goes for Jamaican, but she doesn't like quite, it's not quite Jamaican. It's like really slow talking. I hate this accent, this like made up accent right here. And then after this, we get like the final consultation by King Viserys to Sir Lionel Strong. And it's basically just him backing up what other people said, that Laena is the right choice. And I think this should have happened like sooner, like in the earlier part of the episode, since we haven't really been spending time a lot with Sir Lionel Strong. So he's kind of just like a nobody right now. Like he should have been the first one asked, along with that other dude that I don't know the name of, the dude with a nice accent, followed by Otto Hightower and the Grand Maester, followed by actual meeting of Laena Velaryon. And then we get like the worst dialogue, the worst written dialogue in the entire episode. And I think in all of House of the Dragon. Because to any one of you who watches like the Philippa Gregory shows, the one based on her books, like The White Queen and such, it has incredibly lazy writing, where like the character just like blurts out her allegiance around people with like other allegiances. They also emphasize stuff we know already, like a lot. And here, for this like scene here, they do it also. And it like annoys me, it like bites at me. But thankfully it's only in the first part. It's when Viserys states the obvious. You left Dragonstone without a word. You are my only heir. You could have been killed. I hate those kinds of lines. It's like this one Philippa Gregory series where this woman goes, my son is the true king of England. The Tudors shall fall, the Yorks shall rise. Like right in front of the Tudor king. That was so bad, and I hate those shows. And I also hate those shows where like most of the intrigue is done by like eavesdropping on doors, especially in A World Without End and less prominently in Pillars of the Earth. But the dialogue does get better. Like it actually like becomes the best scene in the entire episode. Like this father-daughter moment between Viserys and Rhaenyra. It's the whole story of the episode going full circle. It's him finally realizing that his daughter is capable, that she outperformed the Hand of the King this day, and both of them finally accepting Queen Emma's death and King Viserys's like responsibility to get married again. So excellent character development, excellent closure to the storyline of the episode, how everything goes full circle, and how both characters get what they want. Until the next scene. Because for the next scene, we finally have King Viserys deciding who his new queen is gonna be. And of course, just as everyone predicted, we could like see it from a mile away. He picks Alicent Hightower. And yeah, I forgot to mention this scene where it was emphasized that Alicent like scratches on her nails. Like she scratches this to bleeding until it turns red and then bleeds. Small scene, but it also has Sir Otto like commanding her to like spend more time with the king. And pretty much she's just being like forced to do this. But yeah, back to the decision scene. The king picks Alicent Hightower, and then this pisses off everyone in the room. Like, this is not a good idea in anyone's perspective aside from Sir Hightowers. And so this pisses the hell out of Lord Valerion. And he just like walks out of the room, looks at Hightower, realizes he's won, that Hightower has the king like wrapped around his finger. And then he just like fucks off and goes to Prince Daemon because he might help him get what he wants. But then the acting here by Millie Alcock, the betrayal and like just like the destruction of like all the progress made in the previous scene. You know what? I'm changing it up. Millie Alcock is MVP for this episode, with Paddy Considine going second and Lord Valerion going third. Because last episode it was like Paddy Considine, Matt Smith, and then Millie Alcock, like in that order. So yeah, after this we get the alliance between Lord Valerion and Daemon Targaryen. And we get some exposition by Lord Valerion, by Corlys. He says that he built the Valerion name from the ground up. They're not dragon riders, unlike the Targaryens. And he's worked too damn hard to like let this idiot destroy his family's fortunes. He asks Daemon to fight the crab feeder with him, brother. And he accepts. So nice exposition by Corlys Valerion. But not really much for Matt Smith. This was like a reserved day for him. But yeah, he was mostly there to be the surprise ally for Lord Valerion. And it is effective. It's definitely effective if you don't know the story. So yeah, younger brothers like us have to take what we deserve. Just like how the Crusades worked, mostly the young sons of noble lords had to go off and like find their fortune as their older siblings like inherited thrones. And for the final scene, we finally see the crab feeder and he's like just like nailing people to stuff, feeding them to crabs, and he looks like scarier than I imagined. Because there's a picture of him in the wiki and it's like sort of just like a normal dude. But here he has like a mask. His face looks deformed in the mask and deformed without. Like if you manage to fill in the blanks. So yeah, nice intimidating look for a villain, not very big. But I guess he doesn't have to because he's like a ship captain. He's a pirate who's being controlled by the Free Cities. And yeah, he's basically the first boss in this whole series. And it looks like from the trailer of next week's episode that it's gonna be a banger. It's gonna be like a climax level episode. And then I assume we get like more build up for another big event in episode 9. So yeah, this episode was really good. It does its job as like a setup episode leading to next week's banger. Like we're probably gonna have a battle next week. They're probably gonna kill the crab feeder in episode 3 or 4 and have Prince Daemon return with his spoils in episode 5. So yeah, that's the review. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you like learned a lot of lore stuff, some differences from the book. And yeah, like, comment, and subscribe for engagement. Share if you don't know me. Hit that bell notification for future videos. And please, watch my shit.